Hi there, Steve Landau here from Everyone Runs and Embrace Tucson, Embrace Your Inner Athlete. I'm here today with Julie Stark from On Your Left Fitness and Timing, and we are so fortunate today to have Ironman, Iron Woman extraordinaire Lisa Roberts with us today. Welcome, Lisa.
Oh, thanks, guys, for having me.
Welcome. Julie, take it away.
Thanks, Steve. Lisa, so good to have you. As Steve said, you are a six-time iron distance champion, and you've set several course records throughout your career. And you've been racing professionally since 2009.
Mm-hmm.
But I personally remember you, and I don't expect you to remember this, but I can remember going into Trisports when it was open back in 2009, 10 maybe, and you were there, and I was such a newbie and would be answering questions for us. And it wasn't until much later that my husband's like, do you realize what a big deal she is?
Oh, God. Oh, no.
So I just think it's kind of cool that I'm getting to reflect on a lot of history for myself and getting to connect with people from my past and people that are still very positive in the community. And you're one of those people. You've been a huge supporter of On Your Left Fitness, the Oro Valley Tri, coming out, giving pro talks, doing Q&A sessions in the park for us. And it's only natural that we should reach out to you and ask you just a few questions about, how are you embracing this new abnormal? Is it impacting, well, I know it's impacting you. I mean, it would be crazy to think it's not, but, what is your take and how you're managing this new abnormal?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's definitely impacting me, obviously, like many and all of the professional athletes who rely on racing to earn our living and to represent our sponsors. And so it's a double whammy for us, having no races and not having as many opportunities to promote our sponsors as well. So a lot of us are struggling, myself included. And, I'll be honest, when everything kind of went into lockdown mode and all the races started disappearing off the calendar, and you kind of readjust, and then you kind of go through this period of thinking that it's just this is temporary. This will kind of get back to normal pretty quick. But the moment that you realize that no, this is a big deal, and this is going to be a bit more of a longer term thing, I actually went through a really rough patch for about a good week and a half or 2 weeks. I was not in a good headspace, and I really struggled with kind of what that new normal was going to look like, and all the plans that I had in my head and set up for this year of racing, certain races that I was excited to do for many different reasons, whether it was just because of where it was located or, big, team events as well. All those kind of disappearing really put me in a state of depression for a while. And I coach a handful of athletes as well, some age group athletes. Some of them are fairly new. And we kind of all went through it together. And I had realized I had to kind of pull myself together pretty quickly, not only for myself and to kind of get myself back out there and moving, but also for my athletes and other people who kind of depend on me to help, push them through difficult times. And I thought, okay, this is just another one of those, it's no different than, a big training block or, something like this happening as well. It's just, we have to kind of readjust and, rethink the situation and do what we can do at this point in time. And that's all we've got. So that's where we had to pivot a little bit, and some people had to put some of their race goals on hold for a while, but we just kind of created new goals. And it's like, okay, if we can't do a race right now, let's work on, say, increasing that FTP that you've wanted to really get after, for the last year or so, but never really quite, had enough time to do. Let's do that. Or, let's find maybe if they've got if they can get outside and, run a trail or, run a route that they've always done. Let's see if maybe we can get like a new personal best on that route. So still kind of hanging these little, dangling these carrots out there for people to give them something to be motivated and something to work toward. And I'm no different. I'm doing the same thing for myself just to kind of keep me going.
What do you see as the future of triathlon going forward right now?
It's going to be interesting. I mean, I think it's really making people think and reevaluate or just evaluate what their everybody says, what is your why? Why are you doing this? And I think it's hitting a lot of people now very hard as to, what their real why is. Are they doing it just, for a race, or are they doing it for, for general health and fitness and for improving themselves? Is it more of a personal journey or not? So I think it's a little bit of both. I think there'll be some people who, may step back from the sport for a little bit because it's kind of really hit them hard and made them rethink this. But on the other hand, I think it's going to really reinvigorate people or invigorate, new people to maybe even get into the sport, because now they've got a little bit more time to get out there and maybe go ride their bike or do some runs, and then eventually get to swim. But so I think it's going to be a little bit of both, and it might take a little while just to kind of balance back out again when everything kind of gets back to somewhat normal.
Now, what about the future of triathlons in general? Do you think they'll be happening anytime soon? Do you think they'll be run differently, produced differently?
Yeah, I think my general feeling is that, potentially by kind of fall time frame, maybe even, later into the year, we might actually see some races, as we know them, whether they've been ones that have been postponed or ones that are just naturally occurring maybe in the September, October, November timeframe. I have no concept whatsoever what, say, something like Kona will look like at all. I have no vision for that, and I've just kind of been watching a little bit to see what's going on. I don't know how they're going to do that with people qualifying for it without having any opportunity to do so leading up to it, and just the timing of that. So I don't know. I'd be really surprised to see if Kona actually happened this year, which would be devastating. But as for some other races, I do see them probably returning more in the fall and in the winter. And yeah, I think with a really gung-ho group of people that are going to be really ready to get out there and race. And hopefully, they can look back at this time and, if they've used it as a way of, working on some of their weaknesses that they might have not been able to, maybe they'll come out of this stronger. And that's the kind of the whole, mindset that I'm putting toward it. Let's take what we've got. And when we come on the other side of this, when I look back, I want to look back and know that I did everything that I could. It might not have been perfect, but I did everything that I could to get me to where I'm at this point. And I've got to be happy with that as well as everybody else.
I'm curious, Lisa, have you spoken to your other fellow, Ironman athlete women about, what they're doing to stay sharp and ready in the hopes that Kona does go through in October? I mean, have you talked to anybody?
I haven't really. I mean, just in general, I've talked to a handful of ladies just about, even some of the races that, are still on the calendar for kind of September timeframe. And obviously that's a fair ways out. So in general, most of us are just we're maintaining some of our fitness. We're not in these huge training blocks, because that's just too long of a time period to really be in this peak fitness and to really be hammering it. So we've all kind of shifted to kind of a modified off-season training schedule that we would normally kind of see, but still just a little bit hesitant. It's very hard to say, and that's the thing, when we get back to some of these races, if it is going to be qualifying races for Kona and say somebody doesn't have their slot yet, it's going to be like, you've got to be ready for that one race if that's the one opportunity you've got. So yeah, so we're all kind of hovering right now, maintaining some fitness, maybe working on some other weaknesses. We're keeping occupied a little bit, and I think there's still a little bit of the camaraderie between us through some of these virtual races that we have going on. There's a Zwift Pro race, there's a men's and women's just a bike race that they've done the second one now today. So they do those on Wednesdays, and that's a great way, even if just at the beginning of the race when we're all kind of virtually warming up behind the start line, there's little chat boxes going on. It's like, hey, how you doing? You can kind of see who's out there. So it's a good way to kind of bring everybody together, and then it's just a hammer fest for half an hour. But so it's very confusing right now. But the main thing is just keeping yourself healthy and keeping the fitness ticking along. And so when we get a solid answer on some of the dates on some of these races, then we can plan for them.
Well, I know that, Tucson is a training mecca in the winter. Cyclists, triathletes, you name it, they're coming here. And now we're getting ready to get hot, and most people would be heading to like Boulder or, you know, Colorado Springs or somewhere other than Tucson. Do you see yourself being able to do any of that, or are you going to have to suffer it out with the rest of us?
Yeah, actually, no, I mean, luckily for myself, I mean, I've been the last 3 or 4 years during the summer, I have gone over to Switzerland and trained there in St. Moritz with my coach and the training squad there. Obviously, that won't happen this year. And um, luckily for me, I wasn't planning on doing that this year. Actually, more my plan was to stay more home based and more North American based and do a lot of the races closer to home. Because the last few years I have kind of had a very long stint in Europe and done a lot of those European races. So for me, it doesn't change my plans too much. I've gutted it out through a few Tucson summers, and it's actually really good training. You know, if you can kind of work your way through it, it's not too bad. So yeah, that's not going to change at all for me.
Okay. Well, Steve, did you have any follow-up questions?
No, I don't. I really appreciate your time, Lisa. You know what? It's a trying time for a lot of people in the world. Fortunately, you know, we have our good health, and
Yep.
we have roofs over our heads, and we can smile and be happy about what we do have. If we cry about what we don't have, it gets us nowhere. And I think
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
saying today too. So everybody, forge forward.
Yep.
Stay positive. We'll all get through this together. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing your day with us today. We appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. Yes. Thank you so much for asking me.
Thank you, Lisa.